All right, our next session moves nicely on to collaborative asset management. So we're looking at cost management as opposed to revenue management. And to moderate this session is Damien Rizzi, who's Associate Director of Hotels for Colliers International. Welcome.
Thank you, Zoltan, for the introduction. I'm pleased to welcome today for this interesting panel on collaborative asset management, Francois Kassab, Managing Director of MENA for Meliá Hotels, Zoltan, Division Head, Assets and Fund Management for Oman Tourism Development Company, Khalid Anib, Chief Executive Officer of Abu Dhabi National Hotels, and Mariano, Head of Asset Management for the First Group. And I'd like to start this panel by asking the same question to two different individuals, which are Francois representing the operator. What is for you collaborative asset management?
I'm the only one representing
operator, yes.
So, okay. Collaborative asset management is in opposite to standard asset management, which is obvious. Is this trend now that the industry understood that we should not be having a line between asset managers and operators fighting between each other. It gives me the impression like in our hospitality business, which we know the friction or the old friction between the kitchen and the service. So now there's this new need of working hand in hand between the operators and the asset managers, and sometimes shifting roles, sometimes changing each other, but always being collaborative, because we have the need to be very complementing each other instead of opposing each other.
Khalid, for you, what would be collaborative asset management? Would you agree to what Francois said?
Yeah, I believe that collaborative asset management would need an understanding of the owner's objective from the operator side. And the owner as well, he would need to understand basically the objective of the operator, which is obviously clear, which is make fees and then generate fees and position the brand in a location or in marketplace. So from the owner perspective, an operator who understands the objectives and collaborate with the owner from the initial stage, starting from the development stage, which extremely important development cost and the type of product we need to develop. Just to come back to the previous panel, which not the previous, but the earlier one, speaking about the funds. So to raise the funds, the operator would present a projection basically to the owner, and that projection needs to be realistic, and that starts the proper collaboration between the two parties. That's extremely important. And then, of course, there are other phases, and the understanding of different cycle of the hotel is extremely important. And the collaborative asset management, once the operator understands these objectives, then it's easier. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work like it should be.
To work collaboratively, one is to work, like we said, hand in hand. And when we were preparing this session, Mariano, you said that on the beginning you don't always get the attention that you would like from the operator. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think it's, from an asset management perspective, it's sometimes when you sign the agreement with an operator and there is an international operator that is managing 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 hotels, it's kind of the perspective why you as a manager is going to tell me that I don't know, you understand? And
And actually, there is a lot of things that we need to tell to the hotel operators, no? The first thing that I think, in order to start the collaborative asset management, in order to get to that stage, the first thing I think you need to gain the respect, no, from the hotel operator, no? And so that's one of the things that you need to build up on your asset management team, no? When you are kind of challenging the operator, because the operators needs to be challenged. Otherwise, if you're not challenge them, it's kind of like free thing, no, for everybody, no. Even that they may say that they act on your behalf, no. But there is always the operators is going to be always acting a little bit on their behalf as well. So when you have to reach to that collaborative, you need to gain that respect. And in order to gain that respect, you really need to invest in a lot of resources yourself. You need to know the market. In a way, the asset manager needs to know about technology, needs to know about the market, needs to know about operations, needs to know about tendencies, about design, about everything, no? So, and then you need to upfront those decisions in front of a company that has like, I don't know, 5,000 people out there. So who are you in order to tell me all of that, no? So in order to bring that, one of the things that the operator does not have, that lacks, is that reach on the local perspective. So when you, for us, that we have like 5 hotels, for us it's 5 hotels. So I wake up and I think about 5 hotels, I go to bed at 5 hotels. For someone sitting in New York, is thinking about 3,000 hotels. So how is going to be the dedication being implemented? So for me, the first step is that respect. Because if you go with a stupid question to the operators, they say, well, whatever, you know, I mean, what is the PMS? Well, yeah, whatever. Just leave it him. Just give him some information and he's going to be happy, no?
So what you're saying is that sometimes an operator portfolio might be too big to give the individual properties the attention that they deserve.
That's correct. That's correct. And that is when I think it comes that collaboration. Because I say, hey, I'm here, and I'm going to bring you that speed, because you have the vision of the long run, I say, all of these hotels, but at the end of the day, if you lose one hotel, what it makes a difference? It doesn't make any difference for you if you fail in one hotel. But if you fail in your hotel, it's, wow, for God's sake, it's my hotel, I'm failing here, you understand? So that reach needs to be complemented to the hotel operator.
So it's pretty much about aligning the stakeholders' interest in between the owner, the operators on the ground, and the head office. Zoltan, we talked about asset plans. Would you agree to say that an asset plan helps to align all those stakeholders' interests, and how?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of misconception, even in this room, when it comes to the work of an asset manager. And the obvious role is always that of a policeman, that of a web engaged by the owner to make sure that the operator delivers the value that is being paid for. And that's, while that's one angle of what asset managers do, and they not necessarily do it through policing or through whipping anybody, they do it through that collaborative approach. There are many other angles and many other roles, and I think we have to turn a bit the asset manager towards the owner as well. And I like to think the asset manager is more of an investment manager, just like Khalid said. It comes early in the process. It has an input on the concept, on the capex, on the site, on the location. There's so many tools that well-qualified and experienced asset managers can engage, other than just checking the costs and making sure that those ratios are within the benchmark. And that's what many owners expect asset managers to do, whether in-house or third-party. But I think we have a responsibility to explain every player of this equation, whether corporate head office, owner, whether it's a family office or a fund, the bank, and so forth, and the authorities, that we can do a lot more. We can take investment decisions or recommend the owners to take an investment decision. You no longer need this asset. You've achieved your objectives. Let's monetize it and then move it to something else. Or we can take property control decisions too when it comes to contracts and leases. And there's also a bit of an overemphasis on HMAs. We've been hearing a lot these days on fights and whether the HMAs are good or bad. And we can get lost in terms of contracts, but the bottom line is if you can align the parties to the same side of the table, you provide as an owner the support to the operator, you understand its problems, then HMAs become secondary. Only the main angles of HMA, like term and fees and all of these things, that will become relevant. And I've never seen really a situation where a bad HMA prevailed for too long. If the intent of the owner was to change that, to make it work, and then the operators tend to find solutions. So I don't want to defend them. Maybe they need a bit of defense after yesterday. But I think we have to be a bit more understanding with everybody's objectives. These operators are large listed companies. They reduce their balance sheets to be able to eliminate the cycles from their business, so they can easily securitize themselves on stock exchange. And so innovation and a very dynamic, proactive approach, we can't really expect them to do that. So owners, we need to encourage that a bit and require that kind of involvement from them.
Francois, would you agree from the operator side?
I mean, that's a difficult position to be in, to be able to answer the three at the same time and wait till I can answer. I totally disagree on this aspect of the collaboration. Now, it happens that I do know some of you and worked with them. Collaboration is there in the day-to-day, but not how it is expressed now. Our added value, I'm glad to have Meliá, who was just before me on the same seat. We add plenty of value today. Our role is in terms of revenue, for example, digitals, bringing the right strategies in this world that is changing. So that's where we are. Now, when I hear that, operators need to have somebody on their back just to motivate them, or sometimes that we are not present physically. I had the opportunity to work with several operators in the last 11 years that I've been in Middle East, and each one of them had a structure, had people who understand the market, the critical size. I mean, I had the opportunity to work for Oman, and OMRAN was one of my asset managers. And we understand, in fact, but where we lack, and not as a positioning, more as in normal thinking, is we tend to think in a number of directions, and there are other players like asset managers who, because of their exposure of speaking to many different operators, could add value to us and say, you know what, we have seen it happening in this way with this group. We have the concept of asset managers are here for costs is something that I think is disappearing. And where we see the added value is when we are, for example, signing or discussing with an owner, and we need a third-party opinion to say, okay, if we send a projection that does not make any sense, we'll not get the project. So we are obliged to overpromise. Could you be this reasonable third party who will explain that, you know what, a projection on an Excel sheet will not help you, Mr. Owner, to achieve it, so don't force these operators beyond what is logical. That's what we see a collaboration between us to be hand in hand, listening to your opinions, knowing that today the trend, and I heard the word that, we are not anymore obliged to justify our existence through our added value pinpointing on the operators. No, adding value to these operators. So that's where I see it.
Khalid, how do you think that we can add value to the revenues of a hotel from an asset management point of view?
Let me just go back to a few big operators that they use to basically to asset manage their own properties, because they used to own assets. And then they became asset light. And what they did, they separated the operation from the pure asset management. So basically, they have brought in expertise to asset manage their own asset because they found out that they were not able to do that themselves. So I just take example of Accor. They created Accor Invest and Accor Management. And they brought in guys, and believe me, it works exactly the same way as an owner with asset management. It's even tougher. You cannot believe. See, the operators, they have value. Absolutely. We all agree. There is a value of that brand which is there. But let him take what does the brand well, which is that recognition and that value. But the cost management, I think, the owner or the proper asset manager should be there to monitor that, because unfortunately, especially the last 2 years in the region revealed, not only in this particular operator, but across the board, that there has been lack of initiatives that would preserve the bottom lines, basically, of the owners because of the drops in the average rates and occupancy in certain markets. So operators were not able to react. So that, again, the role of the asset manager is extremely important, is to make sure that that operator is really doing the right thing. Value, of course, there is a value, but then that value needs to be converted, or that revenue needs to be converted in acceptable bottom lines.
So what you're saying is that asset managers are here to increase the efficiency, to improve the efficiency of the assets. And I'm wondering how, with market intelligence, we can add value on the top line.
Market intelligence, of course, it adds value, but today, you have the distribution environment that is changing and evolving, and you have the OTAs and all that. But the operator, to be with those large operators, give you a leverage and you pay less commission to those OTAs. So it's clear, and that's what I would say is helping them today and differentiate them from, non-recognized operators. But again, from asset management perspective, from owner perspective, which is very important, is that operator understand that there is a top line that needs to be there, but he needs also to understand the life cycle of the hotel, and he needs to understand, most importantly, that there is loans to be paid, and there is a cash flow that is that is necessary to continue to run that business. I always say, GM of a hotel, he has the passion to welcome the guests and to provide the best services. But owners, we have the passion to make money, and we need something in between that will enable us to serve that guest, but at the lower cost possible. This is about it.
May I give an example to this? For instance, because again, I want to challenge a bit the perception that we're only focused on cost. What if we have the wrong brand and the wrong market positioning on a building? We don't want to sell the building, but it's just wrongly positioned. Who do we expect the operator to tell us that I don't think you have the right brand here because you're not catering for the right market segments. The whole area is moving maybe to all-inclusive markets, long stays, low margins, high volumes, but we're not really that strong in that business. They will never say that. So the asset manager or the owner or the investment manager who's well-versed in that business has to be able to realize that I think we're probably better off with another brand, even maybe it's from within the same operator stable, which is a bit more lucky, or write a different supplier or a different operator. And that's a way of trying to add maybe top line value. And we shouldn't just expect the operator to deliver the top line. I think there is a collaborative angle on the top line too, not only on the cost side. The whole business mix. If one operator is pushing the wholesalers and is pushing the maybe corporate contracts, but is not marketing enough on the FIT or on their platforms are outdated, they're not having good relationships with the OTAs, then why don't we encourage them to do that? And I think the responsibility is not, and I even go one step further, it's not even the operations only. What about the banks? The banks, we always look at the banks as holy places, but they have a fair amount of responsibility when it comes to the state of the industry. And because you mentioned those projections are required by the credit committees. And if they're given by XYZ operator, then they're sort of taken for granted. If they're given by somebody who's been in the market for 30 years and has done it, maybe it's challenged. So the whole sector, I think, is maturing in a direction where the asset management role, the investment manager role, becomes ever more important.
In terms of local reach, Khalid, you have quite a few hotels in Abu Dhabi. Do you feel sometimes the operator might be too weak to understand the specificity of a market given the global reach?
Look, unfortunately, those operators are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And they have less resources. You know, how can you be aware of what is happening from both top line and cost components and bottom line if you are the VP and you are running 60 or 50 or 80 hotel? You are not really going to focus on that. And again, that's the role of the asset management, to make sure that whatever decision is taken to bring in top line is the right one, is the right mix in that and then also the cost component. And again, I challenge the operators when it comes to the purchasing power that they should bring in and efficiencies, but they are not there. I mean, you would find that a large corporation operator, he would buy things 20, 30% higher than the market. So yes, there is the local knowledge of the marketplace help in many areas to take the right decisions. And the role of the asset manager is to make sure that he is aware and that he validates basically what is happening in a hotel. So he's monitoring on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Sometimes operators, they are not happy to hear that, but this is how it works. And I was personally general manager in the past, and I had asset managers, and I had all type of asset managers behind me. And I would say that they have a role to play. They have a very important role to play.
We only have 3 minutes left. Francois,
I need the right of answer, because you just mentioned it without, we won't have time to go into deeper debate, but exactly to your point, you were a general manager, then now you are asset manager, and vice versa. So I mean, vice versa, I'm as well financial background, now I am in a different role. So it would be, which is not what you are saying, but it would be simplistic to say asset managers are better in doing the role of the operator or challenging them. You are not saying this, but just to be clear, while the asset managers will be able to look at some cost elements, and the operator or the general manager of the hotel is not able to do it. So from my side, if I want to really emphasize on one point, is collaboration is definitely helping both sides. Now, nobody's perfect, and in each role you are focusing on a different element. Now, it's extremely healthy to hear and defend points, because sometimes as well, too much cost or too much refusal on some investments, etc., could block the long term. But for the asset manager, his focus is could be cash flow today. While yeah, but you will could be that it will harm the long term of the property. So debate is very interesting. 145.
Yeah. Just one point, if I may add on the operator's responsibility, and since we don't want to, we don't expect them to be very innovative because they're too big to be very innovative. I think what we could expect as owners and asset managers, that the operators are going back to the people. I think the technological war is lost. Clearly, there's no point in focusing that anymore. A lot of the customer experience is taken out of the property, but at least the part that remains in the property, that's where they should focus. They should have, and they should talk more about their people and their people sticking with them for 10, 15, 20 years and carrying that culture and making sure that that passion is and that magic happens within those 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 days, whatever the length of the stays. And this is what we're not seeing, I think, today. We're seeing apps and efforts and cloud computing and a lot of things that it's great, but other people do that and they don't face the customer. The operator faces the customer. I think that focus back to the people is going to bring a lot of value to the owners and a lot less headache.
Thank you, Zoltan. I think we have to wrap up. We only have a few seconds left. In a nutshell, what I can see is that our profession is growing in the region because the RevPAR are going down. There's still a bit of work to do to find a good way to work collaboratively together, but we are on the right track. Any questions from the audience?
Good afternoon. What is a win-win situation when the marriage is for 20 years and the contract is always pro-operator? In a scenario like this, anybody can answer that.
I think that the management agreement should be dynamic, should not be static. Unfortunately, it is a static agreement, and when you go to the fundamentals behind that agreement, they are no longer valid in today's market. So we should be able, or the operator should have, and some of them do, some of them they accept to amend certain, what I would say, ridiculous clauses in that agreement. And these operators, they are looking for a long-term, win-win situation, as you say. Because if you have one-sided agreement, which is unfortunately the case, because we are in different dynamics. So, yes, we would like to see dynamic agreements, not statics with static clause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. I think on that note, dynamic agreements, I like that. I also think it's about culture, it's about communication, collaboration, and heritage. So thank you guys, thank you so much for joining us. And please show your appreciation to our panel, to Damien and his panel.